And so the wrap-ups just keep marching on. Here is the next one. Hello, and welcome to the Ponderings of Pete. I am Pete. This is my channel, as is probably pretty obvious. If you are new here, welcome. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate you popping by. If you want to hit the like button, go ahead and do that if you think this is a decent video. If you want to see more of just what I do, all that jazz, the subscribe button and the bell notification to all really helps you get exposed to my videos. So, and I appreciate it because, I'm here to spout my thoughts, and if more people want to listen to my thoughts, it's a good thing, evidently. And of course, if you had a really good book that you read this month, I'd love to hear about that as well. So go ahead and put that down in the comments. If you're coming back, thank you so much. I appreciate every single one of you. I appreciate your guys' support, conversations, your comments, all that jazz. Thank you. If you would like to continue the conversation as well, please comment. Join the Discord that I have linked down below. That's my Discord, the Ponder Inn. It's great. So we can, just talk, have more conversations about books, because that's what we're here for, right? Without further ado, as everybody says, let's talk about what I read in March. More accurately, we're going to start with what I didn't finish, but I started and I'm working towards finishing. The first one, of course, is Infinite Jest. I've talked about this one a lot, but it's definitely an interesting literary fiction book that explores addiction and entertainment in just weird ways. It's a pretty heavy book, in weight as well as just mental heaviness a little bit, but it is also comedic in a very weird way. And yeah, it's very interesting. The prose and everything switches constantly. And it takes place at a tennis academy in the late 2008 or 9-ish. So that's interesting. Yeah, I've been reading this one for a few months, and it's been interesting. I just haven't been able to get through much of it. I'm trying to finish it this month. We'll see how that goes. And I'm not saying these are DNFs. These are ones that I'm continuing on in April. As you will see, they were on my April TBR that I posted. But they're the ones I did not finish in March, but I'm continuing. Providence of Fire. This one I intended to get done by the end of March. This is the continuation of the Unhewn Throne, Chronicles of the Unhewn Throne, and it's one of those books that's meh still. It's picked up a lot from the first book. There are definitely a few things with the first book that I had gripes with that I don't perceive to be gripes with the second book. Specifically, just like the tension is a lot more believable now. But yeah, I'm just making my way through this. I did not finish this one this month because Sanderson dropped the prologue for Stormlight 5, and that took up a significant amount of my reading time and brain space researching for that for a hot minute in the end of March. So that's why I didn't get that one done. The next one is, the last one, is Mr. Mercedes. I got about a third of the way through this one. It's another heavy book because it does deal with a killer and such, and this isn't my usual fare. That is Stephen King. So it's heavy, but I'm still working through it, which is nice. So just trying it out, see if I like it. Now, on to the ones that I actually finished this month. The first would be Dead House Landing by Ian C. Esselmont. This is the second book in the Path to Ascendancy trilogy. Takes place in the world of Malazan. This is a prequel to the Malazan Book of the Fallen, if you started reading that. And this one is a lot better than the first one. This is the second book. We're seeing a lot more set pieces that are familiar in this book. We go to Malaz City, which pops up a few times throughout the series, the Book of the Fallen series. And we're seeing the shape of what it's going to turn into. And, that's always interesting to do. It's always interesting to see when you read a prequel after the series that you read, because you know roughly where things are going to a certain extent, depending on how soon the prequel is. So it's just interesting. I like it. The motivations in this book were a lot clearer. So I definitely think it's an improvement on the first book. The second one I finished was The Ladies of Grace Adieu by Susanna Clarke. And guys, this one was just phenomenal. A majority of these short stories were set in the world of Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell and added such a unique just perspective on some of the elements of that world. Some of them were fairy stories. Some of them were explicitly like, there were a bunch of them that were explicitly like fairy tale-esque, heavy fairy tale things. So, you know, there's one or two endings that I was like, wait, what? Why? Okay, fairy tale logic. I get it. And then like, oh, fairy tale. That's kind of why the narrative is the way it is. I really love these. I love me some Susanna Clarke. So these were beautiful. There's some interesting characters in there. There was some more exploration of the magic and some other stuff that was just really cool. The next one that I read this month was The King's Blood by Daniel Abraham. This is the second book in the Dagger and Coin series by Abraham, which really delves deep into exploring the nature of power, whether it is through money, whether it is through swords, whether it's through whispers, whether it's just whatever. And it's really interesting. King's Blood takes the bar up a notch or two from Dragon's Path. The characters felt like they were several characters definitely felt like they were coming into their own for the POVs and just becoming a lot better as characters and fully fleshed out and well-rounded as characters. You know, this is kind of like getting further to know them in this book, and it's great. Looking forward to continuing with the series. Just Daniel Abraham in general is amazing, so I will eat up all of it. And the final book that I read this month, or finished this month, is Star Wars Tales of the New Republic. Bunch of short stories, really interesting short stories that take place after episode 6 in the Legends canon. And this kind of felt like a warm blanket, just coming home to something that's super, super familiar. Because the writing styles are familiar, the different things that happen in it are very familiar. You know, there's definitely a wealth of details that were added to some of the books that may not have been in the movies. And there were just some interesting parts. And I recognize some of the stories because some of these take in between, before, after, in between a bunch of different of the other stories that happen in the Legends universe. So recognizing where they were in the timeline is also just an interesting and fun exercise. So I really like this. I would definitely recommend this if you just want some light Star Wars Legends fare. They do contain references to other books, and there's definitely some spoilers for the Jedi Academy trilogy in here. I can't remember which books it has spoilers for, but I think it's either 2 or 3 that it has spoilers for. Like, it takes place, there's a short story that takes place in the middle of one of the Jedi Academy books, essentially. So, read Jedi Academy first for at least one of these, or just prepare to be spoiled, because that's kind of inevitable with Star Wars, the Legends canon. If you read Fate of the Jedi, you read the New Jedi Order, they tend to spoil the stuff that came before. So, came before publishing date-wise as well as timeline date. So, for instance, you know, one of the older Star Wars books, like The Adventures of Lando Calrissian, is not going to spoil Clone Wars books because the Clone Wars books were written later. So, yeah. So, they're really nice, and it's just nice to see the interconnectedness with it. I don't necessarily think that the new Disney canon has reached that level of interconnectedness yet. It's definitely there. And we're seeing new applications of it. Like, we're seeing Cobb Vanth is from The Office. Cobb Vanth is from Aftermath. But we are seeing book characters introduced into the movies, as well as, like, cartoon characters like Ahsoka introduced into live action, which is so cool. So, it's cool. You know, I definitely do appreciate a better story in the end as well. But that's a whole nother video or a whole nother just discussion about the state of Star Wars. Which I would probably say I'm slightly out of touch with nowadays just because I'm jaded and not necessarily interacting with the fandom as much. So, yeah. Anyways, that's a long Star Wars thought process. Actually, that wasn't the last book because I completely forgot about a book and thus I'm refilming some things. Or at least this part. Or not really refilming because I'm just filming. Anyways, I read Assassin's Quest last month. Assassin's Quest, last book of the Farseer trilogy by Robin Hobb. Great ending to the trilogy. It's definitely a lot longer, and the pacing is definitely a lot different, especially because this one is mainly focused on a traveling main character, versus the other two took place in one town. So it definitely was slightly jarring there, but I really love the elements that this book added to the world of Robin Hobb, and I am really, really, really looking forward to continuing Realm of the Outerlings in, what's the next month? May? Yes, May. We're going to start live ships, and it's going to be awesome. Thank you so much for watching. If you got here, you're awesome. make sure to get some rest. I really do, especially after this weekend, just staying up long nights. But that's what hanging out with friends does sometimes. Thank you so much again. Get some rest. It's important.